Bedded down the takeover of Provincial Traders and Barrett Burston, having reformed the board with Sir Ian as chairman, the company was now looking in good shape and growing quite rapidly. The major issue that I faced as CEO was that the CBA Bank, who'd made by now a very handsome profit on their shareholding in Henry Jones, had decided they thought it was time for them to exit. Originally the plan was to only stay in 4 years. They'd now been in about 8. So Doug Stride said that they would like to sell their shares. So we had to think about who we could get to take them out. So the first thing we did was to try and reduce the shareholding of CBA Bank by getting rid of the holding company, which originally bought the 72%, General Management Holdings, GMH we called it, because GMH was the biggest company here at the time, but they made Holden motor cars. And so what we did is we dissolved GMH and gave all of the shareholders in GMH Henry Jones shares direct. Now this reduced the CBA's holding from 49% down to 33%. They were diluted in Henry Jones. So that gave us a better opportunity to find a new shareholder. We racked our brains. We were very friendly with the CUB because we were providing the hops and the malt, two of the major ingredients to the brewery. CUB at the time knew that they were not performing that well, very profitable company, but they too could be vulnerable to takeover. So we went along, and Sir Ian and I went along and met with John Bailey, who later became a very great friend, an outstanding man, and the chairman, who only died recently. They decided very quickly that they would buy out the CBA Bank. I've forgotten under the takeover law how it worked back then, but CUB finished up taking over the 33% of CBA's holding in Henry Jones. So we had a new friend, a new shareholder, which was fantastic. And it had taken the shackles off a bit, and well, we're looking forward to a bright future. Then it was in 81 we heard for the first time of Mr. Holmescourt, who throughout the 80s I duelled with quite often. He had decided to take a small shareholding in Elders, which was still a shareholder in Henry Jones. So we were very friendly with Elders. And he bought up to 5% and then pushed the share price up. There's a lot of talk of takeover. He then all of a sudden sold out and made a very handsome profit, I don't know how many million. But that wasn't the end of it. 6 months later he was back into the market again. Elders had a big business in Perth, where Holmescourt, in Western Australia, where Holmescourt lived, and he got on well with Mr. Bongers, who was the Elders man in Perth. They kept talking, he kept buying shares, and he kept misleading the Elders board and management by saying he was never going to launch a takeover. All of a sudden he launched a takeover for 50% of Elders. And by this stage their price had gone from about $2.60 to somewhere around $3.50, and I think he bid about $4 a share. Well, this frightened Charles Schmidt, the CEO, and Sir Norman Young. What were they going to do? The chief executive, a guy called Owens from the Advertiser, well, first of all, I should say, Sir Norman went to the government to try and stop anybody owning more than 10% of Elders. Well, that was turned down. You just couldn't do that in this changing environment. Then Owens, who was CEO of the Advertiser, he came and saw Norman Young and said, look, I'll buy some shares, because that was the other. Elders and the Advertiser were the two establishment businesses run out of Adelaide. So he started to buy shares against Holmescourt, pushed the price up well over $4, and the race was on. The battle went on. Holmescourt finished up with he launched his bid, he was up in the over 20%, Owens, for the Advertiser, had about 13 or 14, and all of a sudden there was 34% there. Now, I don't know how BT got into this, but they were friendly with Elders, and all of a sudden they were asked to help defend and support Elders against the bid by Homes Accord. Well, Peter Joseph, who was known to us, he was helping us in some of our business matters in New South Wales, a very good merchant banker, great friend of Peter Scanlon's. He started working for Elders, and he actually said to Elders, the first thing I've got to do is see if I can buy Homes Accord out. And he said to Elders, would you be able to find a buyer for the shares if I did? And they said, yes, of course, and we'll be able to, get them paid for. So finally, with the prices escalating, Homes Accord decided that he would sell. Peter Joseph purchased the shares on behalf of a buyer he thought Elders would tell him. At the same time, Bob Cowper and Peter Scanlon were talking to Elders to try and see if there was some way we could help them, because they were a friendly shareholder in Henry Jones. They were in the Adelaide boardroom when Schmidt came running into the room, and they were still there where Norman Young was as well, and said, we've got him out, it's all over, we've saved Elders. The problem was, who was the buyer? And as history we found out there was none. Now it turns out Owens, who was head of the Advertiser, said he was the buyer, but the funding was certainly provided by Elders, and Owens went to jail because he wouldn't disclose the true owner. I think he spent 3 months in jail down the track. And that set up the plan for us to do a reverse takeover. We could see Elders was in a lot of difficulty, and that difficulty could only be solved if somebody came in and took the shares. So there were two issues. How do we do a deal with Elders? And we conceived of the reverse takeover where Elders would buy Henry Jones, Sirian would become chairman, I'd become chief executive, so Norman Young, who was due to retire, and Charles Smith would both go. The only concession, and then that meant by the Sunday afternoon we had the meetings. This had all happened in the space of 4 days. So Scanlon and Cowper were talking to Elders to finalise the deal. I was over at the brewery talking with John Baillieu and Eddie Cohen, the chairman, to try and make sure that the Elders shares would be bought by CUB. Now next week I'll tell you how it all worked out.